specialist, Rodney. He's got a warehouse full of high-tech laboratory surplus. This isn't just glass, it's thermal-responsive cryocrystal. They arrived at a corrugated iron shed tucked behind a scrap metal yard. Ian, a man who looked like he'd spent the last 20 years living in a domestic freezer, greeted them with a handshake that was literally cold enough to make Dill's knuckles crack. "Here they are, Derek," Ian rasped, pulling back a heavy tarpaulin. Inside were crates of thick, heavy mugs. They had a strange, double-walled design filled with a clear, swirling liquid. Even in the damp Lewisham air, a faint frost seemed to cling to the rims. "Liquid nitrogen, see?" Ian whispered, as if he were revealing a state secret. "Sealed in a pressurized vacuum. You pour the beer in, the nitrogen reacts to the kinetic energy of the liquid, and boom, you've got a pint colder than a mother-in-law's stare." Dell inspected a mug. It felt dangerously heavy, like a handheld anchor. "Is it stable, Ian?" "I don't want any." "Well, cryogenic incidents. Stable as the Bank of England, Dell. Unless you drop M on concrete from a height of more than 6 inches. Then they tend to. Well, let's just say they rapidly decompress." Chapter 42. The Physics of Chilled. Back at the flat, the living room had been transformed into a thermal testing laboratory. Dell had donned a pair of yellow rubber gloves and a pair of oversized sunglasses, which he claimed were anti-glare cryo goggles. "Right, Rodney, observe," Dell announced, holding a sub-zero sipper with the reverence of a high priest. "One room-temperature bottle of light ale, prepared for the Trotter treatment." He poured the ale into the mug. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, a sound like a distant avalanche began to emanate from the mug. A thick, white mist started pouring over the sides, obscuring the coffee table and making it look like a low-budget 1980s music video. "Look at that, Raquel. It's like magic," Dell beamed. The mist cleared to reveal the ale. It wasn't just cold, it was immobile. A solid, amber block of ice had formed within the mug, trapping several air bubbles in a state of permanent surprise. "Dell," Rodney said, poking the surface with a teaspoon. It made a sharp clink sound. "It's not a drink anymore. It's a popsicle. How am I supposed to drink a popsicle?" "It's the slow release feature, Rodney. It's for the man who wants to savor his pint. You don't drink it. You inhale the vapors until it thaws." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the room. A spider web of fractures appeared on the inner wall of the mug. A tiny jet of liquid nitrogen hissed out, instantly turning the spilled ale on the table into a patch of permafrost. "Dell, my table!" Raquel shrieked. "You've just created a miniature glacier in the living room." It's just the active cooling at work, sweetheart," Dell shouted, frantically trying to cover the mug with a cushion. Chapter 43. A Summer Heat Wave in Peckham. By Friday, London was gripped by a freak heat wave. The temperature in Peckham hit 90 degrees, and the air felt like it was being blown out of a giant hairdryer. The streets were melting, the dogs were panting, and everyone was desperate for anything that didn't feel like lukewarm soup. "This is it, Rotters, the perfect storm," Dell shouted, loading the crates into the back of the van. He was sweating profusely, but his spirit was as buoyant as ever. "The market will be a dessert, and we're the oasis." They set up their pitch in the middle of the high street. Dell had painted a large sign, "The Trotter Arctic Mug Colder Than the North Pole. Stay chilled or get killed." A crowd of thirsty market goers gathered instantly. The heat was so oppressive that people were willing to buy anything that looked remotely cold. "Watch this, ladies and gentlemen," Dell yelled, standing on a crate. He held up a sub-zero sipper and poured a bottle of cider into it. The white mist erupted. The crowd gasped in awe. In the sweltering heat, the sight of actual frost was like a vision from heaven. 10 quid a mug, a small price for permanent refrigeration, Dell boomed. He was handing them out as fast as Rodney could take the money. For 45 minutes, the Trotters were the kings of the heat wave. The cash box was singing, and Dell was grinning so hard his face looked like it might split. But then the temperature reached its peak. Chapter 44, The Frozen Pint. The first sign of trouble came from a man named Sid, not the cafe owner, but a local lorry driver with a very large thirst. He had just bought a mug and filled it with a pint of stout. "This is amazing, Del Boy," Sid shouted, raising the mug. "It's like drinking liquid winter." He took a large, enthusiastic gulp, but as his tongue touched the rim of the mug, which had now reached a temperature of -40 degrees, the physical laws of the universe intervened. Sid's eyes went wide. He tried to pull the mug away. He couldn't. "Mumph, mumph," Sid groaned, the mug firmly attached to his lower lip and tongue as if it were part of his anatomy. "Look at that. He's so attached to the quality, he won't let go," Dell shouted to the crowd, though a flicker of panic was starting to dance in his eyes. Suddenly, another customer screamed. His mug hadn't just stuck to him, it had spontaneously rapidly decompressed. A loud bang echoed through the market as the double walls shattered, sending a spray of liquid nitrogen and frozen lager into the air. Within seconds, the pitch was a scene of thermal chaos. People were running around with mugs stuck to their faces, while others were being showered in beer-flavored hailstones. The liquid nitrogen that had leaked onto the pavement was creating a patch of black ice in the middle of a 90-degree afternoon. "Rodney, the van! Start the van!" Dell screamed, grabbing the cash box as a group of angry, frostbitten customers began to converge on them. "I can't, Dell, the gear stick is frozen solid," Rodney yelled back. Chapter 45, The Final Chill. They barely managed to push the van out of the market leaving behind a trail of mist and several very confused pigeons who had accidentally been